All right, all right, all right. Welcome to this episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. My guest, Blake Sloan. Blake, welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Warrior Week 16 and Warrior Week 48. 46?
16,
Fuck.
46.
Shit, 40 Warrior Week. No, 30 Warrior Weeks apart.
Crazy in between. Massive changes there, and then came back and assisted 48.
Oh, you did? Okay, so I knew there was
Yeah,
something
yeah.
with 48.
Yeah, so
All right.
assisted that one.
So you assisted that one. But 16 and then came back to 36. Sit down, relax, and we're about to get into a very interesting show.
I was a man that didn't know how lost I was and sedated in my ways before Warrior Week.
And we are back. Warrior Week 16, man. Let's go back to that first time where you picked up the phone and you contacted Warrior and said, listen, bro, like I gotta come here. What got your attention, Blake, and more importantly, why, man?
So I'll never forget the whole kind of breakdown of how it happened. A good friend, Az Arajo, I'd seen him kind of transform before that, and I knew something was different. I couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah.
And ironically, Garrett actually showed up in People You May Know in my Facebook. Wait, this is like 2015. And I was like, all right. I saw some stuff, like add friend. Back then he accepted. I think he didn't have like 30,000, Facebook followers or whatever. But then all of a sudden it was like the next day I saw the video. And he shared the video and I was like, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. And at that time I was in a place where on the outside everything looked amazing, right? Business looked great, making tons and tons of money, and just did the Forbes 30 on 30 at that. But on the inside, though, I was fucked up. I was miserable. But I was thinking about even today when I came back, and I was actually in Laguna today. It's kind of like emotional looking back at who I was right then at the old like HQ, and I walked by there just to like feel it. And I was miserable on the inside. I had so much pain, but I did not even really know what the problem was. I just really resonated with the video, really resonated with what Garrett's message was at that time. And looking back, I was like almost emotional today, just even walking back through there, kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's crazy because if we roll back, it was January 2015. That's where your Warrior Week was. What? January 2015?
I believe 15 or 16. I can't even remember now. It may have been December 15 and then January 16.
Right. It's it was 15. January 15. That was 16, and then and so how old were you then?
So 36 now. Was that 33?
33. So yeah. I remember specifically. You were 33, successful in business. You were in a relationship at that time, which you seemed to be happy in and successful in at that time. Literally, there was like, you had 10, 15 pounds here and there, but it wasn't like crazy. And spiritually, you weren't that disconnected. So like, literally, it was like, okay, like, on the outside, nothing looked wrong at all. And yet you talk about on the inside, and it wasn't until Warrior Week 46 that we even looked at the inside, because 16 was more of empowering experience, 46 was more of an in-depth finding the inside. But even after, and we'll get to that, and even after looking at 46, dude, there was nothing fundamentally wrong with your life. There was nothing wrong with the past. Great parents, growing up, awesome environment. There was no trauma or drama in the past that you could link yourself and say, well, my life deviated because of that, right? Which brings us back to 16, and like now that we're sitting back and interesting enough, looking back, both you and I, much wiser at the Blake that came into 16. What was this thing? Because it's interesting that you mentioned. What the fuck was this inside thing that was not happy? Because there's a lot of 32-year-old dudes that are out there that feel exactly how you felt then. Today, you're wiser, much wiser to look back. What would you say that could have been?
I've thought about this a lot, and so I'll never forget. It was like this emptiness, this aloneness, and this feeling that I was fucked up. Right? I always thought that I was crazy, and so I mean, the way people always try to put me in this box. I would always either be too intense or not intense, and so I feel like I was literally crazy, but I could not ever put words on what that pain was, that inside pain, that constant, just wound up as a top. And so I would hide it, and I'd hide it, and I'd hide it. And then what would happen, it'd build up, and guess what? Then I'd fucking explode on people and those that I loved. And I really think that, what really resonated with me is that, Garrett's video initially kind of put words into what the pain I was feeling was. Because I just knew I was fucked up. I didn't know what exactly was wrong. I just knew something wasn't good. And I knew that there was a lot of things that were just totally not right at all. And, it's just the pain of business, the pain of the pressure, the pain of everything. So it just got bottled up. And then the longer I went, the more people just kind of said, man, something's wrong with you. You work too much. You work too hard. You got this, you got that. And so I'd try to back it down and then ultimately have the inside just build up and boil up until I exploded on people I love, people I work with, my family. And looking back, man, I was just wound up like a giant, fucking top, really, that just waiting to explode. I'd do it, and then guess what? I'd do that, and then I'd feel guilty about it, and I'd have shame and blame and all this stuff. And so it was this vicious cycle of pretending kind of that everything was all right, and it really wasn't at all.
When you look back at that time, what would you say particularly was missing in your life? Because you had money, so it wasn't that you had to struggle for money. Obviously, you had to work hard in business. Business is business, so you had to be sharp in business, right? So that took a lot of energy and focus. You had you had your girlfriend or your fiance, whatever. You had your significant other then, and you had status. So what the fuck was missing? Because was it other dudes in your life that was missing? Was there friends, like really guys where you can share some of the stuff that is going on with you, right? Or was that missing, would you say?
So I think for me, it was just the lack of anyone that ever understood the amount of pain I was going through, right? From a business perspective, and people just screwing you over and all these things that come with running a business at a high level. I feel like that I was just, no one understood, right? And you could try to talk to people that were my friends, and they had no clue, right? They say they would understand, but ultimately they would never really truly understand the pain on the inside, right? Of all the letdowns, all the different things that you went through, and really kind of the sacrifice that has to be made to be able to grow a business like that.
So for them, it was like, hey, man, what are you complaining about? You making money, right? That's and they wouldn't say it in a way to like hurt you, but that's what the limitation of understanding was. Like no one understood like the hard decisions, the conversations of letting go someone that has worked for years or hiring a new person and then realizing that fuck, you paid all this money and it just didn't went anywhere, and so many other decisions that are made daily, right? Or expectation that are set from clients and returning clients and conversations that are taking place about you that is not true in the marketplace, right? Between clients, cases that you have to fucking feel that you have to put all your energy to defend yourself in a place where like, why would I fucking even defend? Well, compliance is another thing, being compliant and just legal and getting sued and, having someone like just attack you out of nowhere. So all that pain that comes with, owning a business and also, dealing with fucking payroll, man, like, on every 2 weeks is like, who the fuck writes to write that amount of check out? Right?
Over and over and over and over. Right?
Like, think about it, right? It's an emotional discharge. At one point as a business owner, you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like, right, this is my purpose. I'm doing this. I'm putting food on the table for others, and like this is why I'm here. But you cannot deny that it's still an outgoing amount out of your bank account.
Right.
Which, if it's visible to you, it can kind of fuck with you. That's why most business owners kind of like handle it to like payroll department, and it becomes like this invisible thing. Because if it's constantly in your face, you constantly get triggered, and you're gonna find someone that's not doing the work in the company and say, right. Motherfucker, why the fuck am I paying you? And
it was like that because, and I think part of that came from being, and I had a decent childhood, nothing like crazy trauma or anything, but I have been on my own financially since 17. And so I had to start from zero. And so I think there's that huge fear of pressure of this giant wave that never feels like it goes away, no matter how big you grow and whatever it is that, I don't ever want to go back to zero. And so that pressure built up and built up. And then obviously through lawsuits and legals and all these different things that you deal with, I just felt alone. And I was trying to think, like, what was there's two massive big takeaways I had from 16. And I think for me, the biggest one by far was I think that I got permission to finally be all of me, right? The dark side and the light side. And for me, I was just going back and thinking about that is I used to be ashamed of the dark side, right? Because what would happen is by the time I'd ever let it out, it would be such a rage and an anger and that I would nuke everybody around me. And so I had this fear, and so I'd bottle up, and then explode. And so then I'd go back to try to be the nice guy that they wanted to fit me in that box. But it's hard to be the good businessman or anybody that's a big player, whatever you want to call it, while you're trying to hold that back. And I'll never forget, 2 or 3 evolutions that we went through that really allowed me to have all of that. And I had this huge aha, like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to be all of me. The good and the bad. And from that day on, I feel like my entire life was different, just finally having the permission to do so and allow me to kind of see all of that. And actually, I had lunch with a friend recently who was known me for that long, and he's like, dude, I've just seen the biggest change of you ever since that warrior thing. And I was like, just looking, I was like, I finally had permission from myself to love myself.
Yeah.
Because I was ashamed of who that person that came out was. But once I was able to give myself permission to harness that power and that person who is the dark warrior who gets shit done when things are tough and you have payroll and you have the legal. I finally did that, and then all of a sudden I felt freedom. I felt, a lot of that freedom. And obviously, I finally feel like I wasn't crazy because I did legitimately think, like, I'm fucked up, man. Like, and then all of a sudden we got around a bunch of other guys that are also fucked up, right? And it's like, all right, we're like a brotherhood of the guys who felt like that. And finally there was something there that could help, I guess, understand that pain, understand that process, and kind of really make sense of all this chaos I had in my life. And so that was kind of one of the biggest ahas for me as a whole.
So 16 was definitely, I remember that, like, there was definitely a shift in 16 for you, and it was just okay being you.
Right.
And you walked into this as a humble student, and you continued with us for a period of time, and I think a year or something, right? You were almost inside of the game with us.
So I did. We had the was Empire. No, we had Empire for a while. We Kingdom, and then Empire for at least a year, I guess, and then it was a year later.
Yeah. And so you went on, and like I remember, like you were weaponized,
right?
And you were weaponized. You definitely found yourself, and we. Like, you were doing your thing, you were always like a fan, but then there was this period of time where you were not that active inside of the group, but you were always a distance a fan, right? And what brought you back? Was it WarriorCon?
WarriorCon, yes.
Okay.
And initially it was just kind of like I think there was a change or whatnot. I can't remember what had happened, and then I just stepped back for a little while there, but I could feel the energy of not being plugged in, right? And there was a something missing in regards to connection. I was in these other, like, I'm in the real estate space, so I had real estate masterminds or whatever, but there was nothing that really ever kind of helped you, get back to that association that we have here, that connection that we have here. And so it was WarriorCon that brought me back, and after speaking with you, and oh man, I knew I was right back at home.
So, we can, you being here and even inside of this conversation today, like the path that brought you here sitting on this chair was never a fucking coincidence. No. It was not, because although 16 everything looked good, but deep down inside there was a lie in your life that you weren't even fucking aware of.
Right.
And you were rolling with that. It was a massive, huge lie in your life that was kind of hijacking. But it is strange because it's as if you always knew it.
Right.
There was, some people may call it hesitation, but I think there was a part of you that knew about that, and that's why that part has always, like, kind of commanded you to take your time.
Right.
And you're going to tell us what that was as we're talking about that, but it's important to link that, because truly, people say, what is warrior? What is warrior? Like, warrior is this conversation of the truth, right? Warrior is, it's just a pathway for a man to pick up the fucking mirror and to look at himself every couple of miles, right?
Right.
And so, although there was massive amount of growth, and I was witness to that, massive amount of growth in 16, and the massive shift, there was an absolutely transformational shift from the guy that came to Warrior Week 16 a week later, and who was operating and who was becoming more and more.
Right.
But yet, inside of that, even the advice you were getting from Garrett and all the other guys was to actually go and act upon the one thing that deep down inside you knew, but it wasn't manifested yet.
Right.
So bring us to clarity on that, because that's an important piece of the puzzle.
And I wanted to, there's actually had two separate ones
Yeah.
in that Warrior Week 46 that
Yes.
I didn't even really know I had. I guess you could kind of word that as like I buried them. I knew something was there, and there's two things I'll never forget when we talk about the pit too. There was two big ones, and when we went to the pit, and it was so damn cold in those nights, and we had the fire, and we went through that process, and when I closed my eyes, and I should shared this that deep with you since then, but I saw my dad, and literally my dad had passed away at that point. He's been dead for like 3 years, but there's a whole history there of what happened when my parents got divorced. My dad cheated on my mom. He wasn't showing up as a husband and father, and cheated on her. The next thing you know, gone within one day. And it obviously fucked me up a little bit. I had to grow up. That was 17 years old. That's that point when I kind of had to grow up. And he ended up going with the lady he had an affair with, who obviously did not like me. And so we kind of had this tumultuous, relationship of trying to connect with my dad for years. And I went there, and I would keep trying, and she would go like slam doors and make these big scenes. And I'll never forget the girl I was dating at the time. She said, "Why do you keep doing this?" And I said, I just don't want to regret not trying one day. Well, shortly later, this is years before Warrior, she created this argument between us, and basically we quit speaking. And then all of a sudden, I think 2 years later, I got a call that said, "Hey, your dad has got cancer. He's about to pass away." And so, long story short, there was this period of like this void. I think I just blocked it all out emotionally. Well, went visit him in ICU, helped him out. He needed some help financially, did some things, and I thought we had reconnected beforehand. He basically had like 2 months to live. And the lady, my stepmother that time, created another huge issue, wouldn't let him speak to us. He passed away shortly after, wouldn't have a funeral. We had no closure, no nothing. She basically just took his ashes and disappeared. And so I had this fucked up thing inside of me, this abandonment, this thing that I didn't even realize I was carrying until we got to the pit.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it was. I hadn't thought about it before, but when I closed my eyes in that process, in that evolution, I saw my dad's face looking back at me. And it was the craziest thing. And that was something I think that was creating a lot of disconnection and anger and frustration for me for years that I didn't even know I was carrying.
Yeah.
There's these things that from a trust standpoint to people, because that was the person who I looked up to the most that literally abandoned me at that point in my life, which obviously looking back was a huge blessing because that forced me to level up as a man and all these things. But I had no idea that was even still an issue until we went through that process with you. And that was the first part. And I think a lot that, I told myself was that I was past all that shit and that it was really a blessing and all that. And that was the story I told myself, but it wasn't until I truly investigated the truth that I realized how much that was holding back on the inside. And so from that day on, I felt a huge freedom of that allowed me to kind of connect deeper and feel like I was, wanted to be a father even deeper from a man standpoint.
Yes.
And so that was the first part. So it's obviously a very powerful.
Huge part.
The whole
huge
46 was just a much, I felt on a deeper level I even know I had of connection and just fulfillment because I was able to get all that shit off my shoulders that I didn't even know was, and it was kind of like it hardened my heart because I went through all that shit as a kid and was able to hold me back from just, that's all I did was just grinding because I was really kind of masking that fear of abandonment, all these things I went through. And so that was a huge aha for me. The second one, you want me to go ahead and go to that, I guess?
Sure, because I want to link them together.
Yeah, and the second one was, I guess, very similar, right? Which you kind of helped me come across in the evolution there. And that was obviously to do with my engagement that I had. That was a failed engagement. And, obviously I think the story or whatever I was running, that I was over that and I was okay. And ultimately I wasn't. And that was kind of the big aha that you helped me through layer after layer of working with me and thank you challenging me and colliding with me. And I didn't even know that was it. I had to go back like 6 times to figure out what that, you made me go back and redo it, and had this thing that ultimately that I was over what happened. And it wasn't until we went through that process that I realized I truly wasn't, right? That same feeling of abandonment and the fear of connection, all these things. And I'll never forget, I don't know how much we can share about that. But
share everything you want, man.
Yeah, so I mean, the pressure that was taken off me once we went through that process and wrote that down on a piece of paper and burned that shit was like one of the most liberating things I've ever done my entire life.
So I'm gonna link this together for you to see that, like, dude, you've been the architect of all this, right? So at 17, your dad leaves the scene, right? And he leaves the scene under the influence of another woman, right? And so the story is like, okay, fuck you, chose him or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go grind, and you built, and so there's one sort of story that gets built up. It was a blessing he left because it's the positive way of thinking. I built myself. I built this motherfucker, right?
Right.
Great. Okay. Then on the other side, this is the undercurrent story. The undercurrent story is there was a female that took my dad away from me. Like that's another, the undercurrent of the story is like there's female energy that came in and stole my dad away from me. You get inside of a relationship, and in that relationship that you were, beginning, you thought that this was just like everything is fine, everything is okay.
Right.
And then there was a lot of pressure on you and like, why you're not marrying this woman, why you're not getting engaged with this woman. The underlying current story was actually preventing you to do that, which is like don't trust this fucking female based on the other female that did this.
Right.
So this is the under at the end of it, when you think about it, and this is exactly when it's the fucking truth that was actually preventing you from making any further bigger engagement or commitment.
Right.
The truth was that it was this bitch that took away your dad. We can put the fingers and say she did it or he did it, or it's not a blame thing. It's the fact. The fact is that your dad was heavily under the influence of this woman. Right. Now, we can say, well, fuck, it was your dad because at the end of it, he's responsible. I get it. But did he have any other guidance that dad? Did he have any other perspective, a point of view that dad, or was he shut down to everything else? He didn't seek for help, man.
No.
You know what I mean? So he stepped into a situation. And just like most powerful man in history, Caesar, and like under the influence of feminine charm,
right?
Like, dude, it's a massive influential power, right?
Right.
To the point that you're actually gonna stop talking to your own kids.
100%.
So he became the complete victim of that story, right?
Right.
I can't put the finger at your dad. Because that's precisely the fucking problem we're trying to solve today, which are men are fucking controlled and they're not weaponized.
100%.
And that's what happened, right? I mean, think about it. If your dad was weaponized with some perspective, some way of thinking, he could have reframed the story.
Oh, 100%. That's why I must have played in my head a million times of having the tools that I have today. Or, like, man, what if he just fucking had something like this and that ripple effect that it has in my life, and it's had in my life and everyone else, from my mom to anything else. And so I look back at him, and he was weak, right? He was weak at that point in life, and and that you nailed it, because he had nothing like that. There was none of the processes and tools, and nobody.
He was alone.
Yes.
Because if there would be at least one guy that would just have a walk and talk with him and say, did you fucking went to war for your marriage?
Right. No.
Like, you're in this, like, you're about to leave your wife and your children, like, are you going to abandon them without even going to war? There was no awakening that was brought to him.
At all. No one to collide with him, to be willing to be like, dude, you are fucking up right now. And at least know with any power. And there's a lot of that to that
So
story.
You and I cannot blame him.
No.
And that's what's so difficult for somebody else right now listening to this that has been betrayed by their dad.
Right.
And they're like, fuck that motherfucker. Yep. He did it, and he abandoned me. But the point is, have you thought about how he felt then? What tools did he had? Who was he connected to? But that guy was fucking alone.
100%. And he had no... In afterwards, I collided with him at that point as the angry teenager, and these things happened. I think that created this energy where he wasn't able to fully come back and just...
Shame and guilt.
Exactly right.
Like, if your dad would be on the podcast right now, it would be me, you, and your dad here, and we say, all right, bro, like, okay, we figured it out. We're not calling you out, but dude... I know you were fucking alone. What was your dad's name?
John.
John, here's the fact. I know you were fucking alone, and your son, you'll be looking him in the eye and say, Dad, I know you were alone. So why don't you just drop the ball, man, and just drop the gloves and just share what was holding you back? I can guarantee you he will list down a number of things that he was guilty of and he felt the shame of.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and there's just, in looking back and obviously having these tools to analyze it, and you could just see where he was just alienated and just further went back. Even from that era or time that it happened, you could just kind of see it and feel it. And then all of a sudden you start seeing the pieces come together like, oh, shit, this is kind of what was going on there before and after he, was exposed for that. And looking back, there's a million different things that should have been done if he would have just had the tools that we have, the things that we have. It's crazy to even think about.
Because look at it, and you know this. There's no one in this world that knows but you.
Right.
There was an unspoken communication when you went to see him.
Yes.
And with everything that you're trained and everything that you've done for yourself, not for anybody else, how you weaponize and sharpen your sensors, when you were in his presence, could you or could you not feel that an unspoken communication of guilt and shame that he was carrying?
Oh, I mean, I could see it even back then almost afterwards. I mean, you could just feel it and see it, just constant guilt. And I even had the conversation. Look, man, I just want my dad back. And
so hold that thoughts. Now I'm going to bring you all the way to 48.
Right.
Because at 48, you played a different role.
Right.
At 48, you came in as part of our certified trainers, and you played the role of training, and you went inside of the game.
Right.
Observing what is happening to a man inside of this process, specifically into the pit,
right,
and coming out of it, and the entire fucking journey, right? This week that he talked about, this warrior week, like literally, which is 1 week of our life given to this fucking process that no one in the world will understand. Either you've been participating in it or you have contributed to it somehow, right? And hey, listen, if you're listening on the other side of the podcast and you're listening to this, like these are the parables from fucking warrior week. It's a week that men go inside of a place, and inside of that place, isolated, there are parables and truth that's going to come out of it. And we're telling those stories. These are stories of the men. The book is out.
Right.
The book is going to be out next week.
Okay.
Every Man a Leader, that talks about all the parables, right?
Right.
And all these podcasts are talking about that parable. So 48, you come in as a trainer,
right,
and inside of that game, now you actually witness the guilt and shame that adult men were carrying, just like your dad on the other side.
Yes.
The difference is only time. 20 years ago, your dad, 19 years ago specifically, right?
Yes.
19 years ago at 17.
Right.
19 years ago, the guys that you saw at 48 into fucking pit were representative of your dad. Right?
100%.
Fuck, man, I'm carrying this guilt and shame. But then they were going through a process to identify themselves.
And you could see the similarity in a way. Yeah, there's all that guilt and shame. And actually, at that time, as observing, I had a huge aha moment connecting all this. And this is something you've seen of how much of everyone's issues and guilt and shame even came from their fathers.
Correct.
And their fathers. And it was like a huge aha. And, I even asked Jesse that was there, like, hey, how many of this is everybody's fathers? And I saw it in mine, that thing, and it was such a huge wave of just constant pain creating more pain creating more pain.
Was it at your warrior week? Because if it was, it's fucking freaky. Was it at your warrior week when one guy quit?
That was the one that I assisted with.
So the guy walked away from the garbage can area.
Yes.
Okay, you want to tell you what the fuck happened there?
Yes.
You want to tell you exactly what he said?
Yes.
This is fucked up. That, like, it's not fucked up. It's a fucking miracle that we're talking about this. He came to me. He wanted to quit, and he came to me and he said the following. He was right after the experience of the pit.
Right.
He came to me and he said, "Hey man, Garrett J. White is a fucking fraud. Blah blah blah. 7 years ago I was in class. I know exactly what he's teaching." I said, "Bro, do you see Garrett here tonight? This has nothing to do with Garrett tonight." Right. So. And then he went to the fact and said, "You know what, man? Like, I have no fucking daddy issue. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars dealing with my dad issues. Blah blah blah." I said, "Listen, bro. Like, hey, we're gonna give you your money back. We're gonna give you some hot soup tonight.
Right.
We're gonna transport you back." And like, so anyway, it was a clean cutout, meaning that we give him his money back. We brought him back. He was cool. He just didn't want to continue forward. But it's crazy why he didn't want to continue forward.
He didn't want to address that.
He didn't want to address that one thing, which you brought in this conversation. It's crazy that you were the witness.
Right, to see that.
To see that guy.
And that ultimately could have freed him.
Freedom.
You know, from that, and just crazy to see. And anybody that may have experienced something like this, it's been so much weight off my shoulders. One, to see the connection, and two, just to fucking address it, right?
Because he carries it.
Right.
It triggered the fuck out of him because
Right.
he's carrying it. He thinks that he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars solving that. Obviously, it wasn't fucking solved if it triggered the fuck out of him.
Yeah, and I remember seeing and feeling the energy of him. I mean, it was
Yes.
it was massively defensive. It was, I could see it and feel it. I was obviously right there watching the whole thing go down, and you could see obviously that's an intense time that everyone goes through. But man, it's so crazy. You're right to see that connection of the two, and it was when I was at that specific one, assisting. It was crazy to have that aha connection, because I will tell you, when I closed my eyes at that night in the pit, the last fucking thing I expected to see was my dad's face.
Yeah.
I mean, I got chills right now, even just talking about it, because it was just the process that finally boiled up and exposed what was truly holding me back in so many areas of my life, specifically allowing me to love at a deeper level, to connect with someone that really, truly was trying to connect deeper with me.
Yeah. So inside of that, right, we got this undercurrent story, and it's actually truth.
Right.
That, hey, man, this female energy came in and took my dad away.
Right.
Right? So now you get inside of a relationship what appears to be successful, beautiful woman, very popular, whatever. Like on the outside, it looks like a perfect fucking couple.
Right.
Right? And there is and then there's the pressure of committing. There was a pressure, and you're not understanding where this pressure coming in, because it's not coming in naturally.
Right.
There seems to be, of course, now we can look at it now, but then you were just confused. There seems to be some underlying agenda that you did not understand, right?
Yes.
Walk into this few years later or 2 years later into it, even with the pressure that was put on you inside of Warrior, say, hey, man, if you're committed, you got to commit.
Right.
There was an undercurrent. There was a truth that was always pulling you aside. Say, bro, you know your own truth. And inside of that, obviously, you didn't know that this was it, but this happened. In 2 years, you found out that, fuck, this woman has been just like fucking lying to you and then just abandoning your trust.
Oh, yeah, cheating me for years.
For years.
Yeah.
And then there you were, somehow fucked up because, like, fuck, I've just been betrayed and this. But on the other side, somehow proud that you didn't go all in on that, because there was one thing that was holding you the truth.
Right. And there was, and I think part of that truth was, and obviously there's a lot of work that I had to do on myself,
Yes.
and relationship in that process. And I look back before Warrior, man, I was an asshole, right? I didn't know I was an asshole. I thought just because I produced a lot that obviously she should just respect me, right? If we all do that story. But the reality was, I had a lot of investing to fix, and invest. And the reality was, I was all in on trying to fix it. But she had a specific caveat of, what she had to have or this or that. And I went all in on that. Eventually, pressure, went in, was engaged. And then months later, it was exposed that she'd been cheating the entire way before. For a long time. But in looking back at Garrett gave me freedom from that. He said, here's the deal. Because there were some things that she was, going to change, but basically had to be engaged before she was changing.
Yeah.
Of course. And so he said, hey, call her bluff on that. Right. And so I did that all in, got engaged. And so it allowed me to be able to in a way, move on. At least I thought I was.
Yeah.
Move on at that time to basically, because I did go all in, with engaged, and it exposed truly what was underlying that current you're talking about. But if I wouldn't have gone all in finally and done that, it probably wouldn't have exposed it, and I would have just had this guilt and shame for not doing that. But there was something inside, and I was not that tuned with the voice back then. I was trying to learn and get deeper, and so there was just something that wasn't right. I just knew it wasn't right. I couldn't prove it. I was like, well, fuck it, I'm all in. And since then, just the tools of having Warrior, since then have been massively different in how I just look on any relationship or anything I do.
So for years, you operated with this background that a female energy and stole my dad away from me, abandoned me. So you linked female energy to abandonment.
Right.
And you operated from a place of not wanting to be abandoned ever.
Right.
And that's the operating system. Inside of that, this relationship came in, and to your own journey of Warrior and everything that you've become, you realize that, fuck, okay, well, the one story that I had with me all these years actually protected me in this process.
Right.
But today, everything is exposed. The girl is exposed. The story is exposed. My relationship with that so all of it came together.
Right.
And it freed you from the story where, being inside of your relationship right now and engaged with your fiance right now, that is purely like all of you.
Right.
Story free.
Right. You talking about right now?
Right now.
Oh, yeah. So that once...
Because once you were able to get rid of the undercurrent story,
right,
then the Blake that is in that relationship is a story-free fucking Blake.
Yes, and the crazy shit is so I had this thing where I wanted to love deeper, right?
Yes,
but I couldn't figure out why I could not love deeper, and I knew that was what needed to have, and obviously having someone who was truly amazing that was loving deeper,
right?
I could feel the wall of me, and like I couldn't go, and literally I'm like, what the fuck, man? I should be going deeper, but I can't. But it wasn't until that was uncovered in 46 that I kind of realized, like, holy shit, and there was two of them, right? And so you helped, obviously, through the process. I mean, it's an amazing process. Words don't even explain the process you go through, but you're through the gifts that you finally tuned and are so good at allowed me to get there, and I'm thankful for that. Even I'm thankful for you colliding with me to help me expose that to myself. It's changed everything, even just dealing with life and anything in general, because looking back at what happens today from a capacity standpoint, I look back at like all the things that I go through, as a businessman, as anything in general that, man, I couldn't imagine going through life without having these tools and these things that we've learned through the process of Warrior.
Yeah. And it was beautiful to witness how you were able to let go of stories that have kept you captive from going all fucking in with all of you.
Right.
Warrior Week 16, you figure out it's okay to be all of you. You got that permission. Warrior Week 46, you learn to go all in with all of you.
Right.
And inside of that, one of the places that you needed to go all fucking in with all of fucking you, all of your part that can love.
Right.
Right? The all of you.
Right.
The all in of all in. The ability to love to a point where there is no limit or restriction or reservation. The key word is reservation.
Right.
Because if you're listening to this and inside of your relationship, you have the slight level of resistance or reservation to consume some of your life just in case, to not go all in blindly inside of your relationship, then there's an undercurrent story that is holding you captive not to go all in.
Yes.
Because today, there's no fucking reservation of giving love.
Right.
You're a channel. It goes through you and it goes to the other person.
Right. I mean, and like the other part of that too is like in all parts of life, from a connection standpoint, and looking back at, so having some of that, anger, or, fear, whatever you call that, it holds back connection with all kind of it, from employees, from people that are, on my teams, to everything, because now having that weight off fills up capacity and space inside me even to feel and love and connect. And obviously you can see those things in other people.
True.
And so it's so crazy to think about, not just this, and something I was thinking about earlier before coming in, is I was teaching with our organization. I was talked about, and we teach obviously all these things in the ripple. We could go on for hours about the ripple effect of just how this has impacted the people in my organization. But we talked about, once you come and go through Warrior Week in that process, it's literally like getting out of the fishbowl, come in the air, and you just look in the fishbowl and watch everyone else. The pain and the things, you're like, man, you can just see it and feel it. Just because you've gone through that process, you've freed yourself from these stories and this bullshit and this shame and guilt that's held you for so long in so many areas.
Correct.
And we talk about that, and we've gone through that even in like I said, my organization. But looking back, I see it now. I was just talking about, I was at an event in San Diego last week, and I could see it and feel it in people immediately just in a 2-minute conversation.
Yes.
And so it's not until you go through a process like Warrior Week that you can I guess, comprehend the feelings and the things that you're able to let go, so you can finally see, I guess, some clarity amongst the chaos that we all have in life.
When you look at this big puzzle called life, and when you look yours, at least from the perspective of, everything that happened from that pivoting point when your dad kind of left, and to the point of the relationship and where you were to, where everything needed to happen. All these pieces of the puzzle needed to happen, and the person that needed to put the fucking puzzle together was you.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't some fucking, audio from Tony Robbins or from anybody else, any motivational. None of those things would have done it for you. Maybe they would have guided you, conversations of that would guide you. Maybe it was years of listening to Tony Robbins that even had you even open to listen to Warrior. I guess that was my case, because if I wouldn't done the Tony Robbins event in San Jose that happened, like, where we walked on the fire, I wouldn't be even open to these kind of conversations, because I was the kind of guy that was like, listen, man, like, my relationships are my relationship. Like, I know how it's my wife's, nobody's fucking business, so no one's going to advise me on my wife. Nobody's going to advise me. Like, no one. I wouldn't take no one's fucking advice, right? Because I'm supposed to be the man. I'm supposed to figure this out. So, everybody else is a fucking pussy that needs help.
It's so true. And there's a fine line on that where I didn't really look at the perspective of, like, maybe open me up to that, but that's so true, because looking back, hundreds and hundreds of books and coach after coach, and I was in all these high-level masterminds, Dan Kennedy, Tony Robbins. I did all the Tony Robbins business mastery, all the other stuff. Nothing, all those together could not touch the transformation that I had through Warrior Week, either one.
Because at Warrior Week, you literally took the last piece of the puzzle. I want you to visualize this piece of puzzle being full metal, right?
Right.
And it's burning in fucking fire and lava. And you had the balls to pick it up, knowing it's going to hurt your fucking hand.
Oh, yeah.
Pick it up, put it in the puzzle, let it cool down. And as it cools down on Friday, you're like, holy fuck, I can see the full picture.
100%. I mean, and again, that's something you couldn't even see before, much less have the balls to pick up and then actually deal with it.
So you put the puzzle, right? It all came clear, and you made a commitment. What was the commitment, bro?
There's one more.
Oh, one more? Okay.
There's one more thing I think that I may help some people out there that was massively impactful for me. Just was a process of Adderall. We talked about that.
Yeah. I want to talk about that, man.
It was important for me to share that.
Share that, because just last week I met a guy, and I referred your story to him. I met a guy that was on that, and I said, like, I just told him your story. So yeah, it's important you said, because there's a lot of guys on it.
And this is something that I had, I don't necessarily struggle with, but as a big producer in business, I was prescribed Adderall through a doctor almost, I don't even know, man. I was in early 20s, and I was taking a 130 a day, right? And obviously that starts to wear off after a while, so then all of a sudden it's 230s a day. And he prescribed me, eventually had me up to 330s per day, which is 90 milligrams of Adderall, which is like, I didn't really know what the hell it was, but ultimately it's like methamphetamine, obviously, in a way from the similar family, right? So, and I relied on it over and over and over, and I knew, and there was a process and a time I went through where I would take all of those, and I would just basically get through the day, and I couldn't sleep at night. So then guess what I would do? I'd drink 6 to 10 to 12 beers at night just to sleep. Yeah, just to wake up and do it again. And wake up and do it again. And I knew that.
And your body never recovers, man. That's why you were fucking fatigued. That's
100%. Well, I did my blood test afterwards, after 46. In that regard, I basically made a commitment on that mountain. I made a commitment to stop, and haven't had touched it since. And
that's huge, man.
It changed my entire life.
How many years you took that?
At least 15. I mean,
like, it's a everyday kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't take it, what happens? Like, what would happen? Would you be in a bad mood? Or
terrible mood, tired, sluggish. I wouldn't take it on the weekends before, but I wouldn't do shit. I would just lay around, right? Because I would try to do things, but from a production standpoint, I would just try to like catch my breath for the next Monday.
So when you take it, it actually makes you focus on doing some shit.
Yeah, laser focus. I mean, it's very, very intense. But what happened was it burned out my adrenal glands. And
okay.
So
I know why. Because your adrenal glands are like, apparently you don't need some shit. You're getting somewhere else. So we're gonna shut down the fucking business, bro.
100%. And so after Warrior Week, I was committed though, man. I'm like, I don't give a because and they'll tell you right before Warrior Week, I couldn't sleep. My heart was exploding through my chest and it was going over. And I remember prayed to God, and this is how powerful this stuff is. I prayed to God that if I could live through the night, I wouldn't take Adderall anymore. And I did. And then I didn't take it for like a week. And then I was like, well, I'll just try just one little bit. This is before Warrior Week. Right? So this is like February or January, February. Yeah. And then my Warrior Week was in March. And at that point, I'm like, fuck it, I'm done. But even to pray through the night and do that and then take the shit again just showed how powerful it was from I don't say addiction standpoint. Because if I wasn't working, I didn't really take it. But obviously I was addicted to just trying to win at work. But
correct.
Either way, at that point after Warrior Week, I said, I'm done. Cold turkey, boom, and haven't touched it since. That's what,
fucking beautiful.
Year and 6 years and 3 months. So the reality is, I got my blood work done. and my adrenals were shot. But thankfully, it happened enough time that I went with a holistic doctor. We started doing it, and guess what? Now the adrenals are coming back naturally through adaptogens, and there's much better ways out there. But I would not have had the pressure in the process and the lead up to Warrior Week. And obviously, we even talk about that, the entire 30-day lead up to Warrior Week is what kind of helped me. The voice inside just over and over and over. This has got to be the time to stop. It's time to stop.
Another proof that, again, you did this when you choose to know, when you choose to seek. You're the one that went to see the doctor.
Right.
It wasn't the doctor that came to you, but you went with a different attitude. You went with, okay, let me understand how this thing works.
Right.
Oh, okay. Apparently, my glands told me to fuck off because my body had another supplier.
For me, looking back, I mean, it's amazing that I'm even still alive. When I tell people the
Fuck.
numbers of what I took, and people hear, even people that take Adderall, like, holy shit, 90 milligrams a day, and that's just what my doctor had prescribed over time. But like,
He must have been a fucking idiot, that guy.
yeah, I mean, I think he just did whatever you said, and he would just write it more, And so it's one of those things. I go to him, he just asked me about real estate, and I'd tell him about real estate, and he would just write the prescription. And so the reality is, like, I was literally killing myself, and it wasn't for Warrior. I mean, and here's a crazy thing about it, and I don't want to get too deep in, but in the lead up, it's so funny. I went through 16. I was back through like WarriorCon stuff. I think when I did 46, I was doing certified trainer. So
Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
life's pretty good, And I think the first day we like, what's going on in the video? I was like, nothing's wrong. And then Sam just laid into my ass, thankfully, over and over. And I was like, what the hell? Nothing's wrong with me. And it's crazy. I had bullshitted myself so much that I didn't think I really had a problem, except this one little thing that was hidden away, which was fucking Adderall.
It's crazy, man.
And if you would not have collided with me, both on the front end, both during that lead up, and even getting so pissed at me made me grow a beard, right? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. You look good, bro.
Yeah, I think I did good. It took me a long time to even grow like a little patch, but the reality is, it wasn't until you kind of helped me collide with me to expose that I even realized it was an actual problem, because I was so bought into my own bullshit about what it was, right? And that's me thinking I live by this code, but ultimately, and I look at it and credit to save my life long term, because I'm not a 20-year-old chicken anymore. The reality is, like, you can't sustain that type of stuff. When I went to the holistic doctor afterwards, he's like, dude, your blood is fucked up, And so we've been on a process for a year and a half to do so, and it changed my life. So anyone out there, there's so many things that you may not even know that you have, or you struggle with Adderall or things like that, man. That shit will kill you eventually. I would go to, this is another previous story that I went to I got a cold, went to the doctor. I hadn't even taken Adderall that day post Warrior Week 46. I'm sorry, previous. This is before 46. I was still taking Adderall. They took my blood pressure, and they rushed me into the back to an EKG because they thought that something was wrong with my heart. I'm like, oh, no, it's always this high. And it was because of all of the Adderall I took all the time consistently. Literally, I mean, I was just kind of a walking time bomb, and I had no idea, man. So there's so many things that I could read 15 million books and it would never ever change that outcome.
The beauty of all this, man, is the following. Like sitting here is one thing you're 100% certain about, is that you are your own fucking supplier.
100%.
Of knowledge and of love, of everything out there. Like, truly, you sit here today and you are a person that is 100% your own fucking supplier.
Right.
The source of love, source of your faith, the source of your knowledge in business, and knowledge for you. Like, you are 100% your own fucking supplier.
And everything. Yeah. And so funny, just as we're talking about this, of being in this process for so long. I went to the 46 Warrior Week thinking, I was like, fuck, I'm pretty good, right? And, and and that's just three of the major ones we're talking about right now, massive breakthroughs that were holding me back in life that I did not even know I still had. But it's not something that I feel you can never do on your own, right? You need someone like you, or someone that processed, and there's nothing that I've ever experienced in anything about. I've walked through the coals at Tony Robbins, all that stuff. Nothing will compare to the actual environment and the energy, the frame and the pressure of what goes on in that process, and putting yourself mentally in a place like Warrior Week that makes you deal with those things in the pit, and ultimately things that you don't even know you still have in the pit.
The truth of it is, Warrior Week has always been, you put a week of your life, we'll fucking match it, right?
100%.
Because that's truly what Warrior Week is. We match it with love, energy, and like, you put a week of your life into it, we'll fucking match a week of our lives, right?
Right.
And together, you become your own fucking supplier.
100%. I mean, in a bunch of different ways in every single area to find literally life-changing pivots, life-changing moves that allow you to. And it depends, like, this is the second time, which I went in thinking, oh, this is just to get the certification. I don't need to go another one. Holy fuck, it changed my entire life.
And when you look at the massive amount of love that you supply to yourself, in like the next step is to supply some another person all that love.
Right.
Once you fill yourself with all of it, right?
Right.
The natural process is to put it in someone else.
Right.
Right. And so talk about your relationship post Worry Week with your current fiance and what happened there.
So the reality of I mean, obviously shared some of those things in that aspect of what happened, but I can instantly feel a deeper level of love from me in that regard. But I mean, just and here's obviously this relationship came post understanding Warrior initially.
Sure.
The tools and the process. I mean, we talk every single day about how thankful we are in regards to what the tools that we have are versus friends out there. Like,
sure.
She's almost kind of where she's at the fishbowl too. You kind of watch and see, and it's funny. We'll be like, talking about our friends. So and so's got this going on. They got that going on. And I'm like, oh, actually, this is going on, this happening. He's probably doing this, and he may be actually, cheating so-and-so. And she's like, oh, there's no way that's possible. And then ultimately, 2 weeks later comes, she's like, you ain't going to believe what just happened. I'm like, let me guess, exactly what I told you what happened. She's like, yes, this is crazy, because ultimately, once you're outside that fishbowl from the Warrior tool set or the Warrior aspect, I mean, that's something that has been very, very different, I guess.
Awesome. So you made a commitment at Warrior Week. What was that commitment?
Which one?
To your love life.
Oh, in regards to get married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a commitment.
Yes.
So is that happening or no?
It will be.
So you got a date?
Yes. Not from that standpoint. We'll have the date soon, though.
Okay, you have a date soon.
Yes.
But it's happening.
Yes.
It didn't happen in the time frame that you wish wanted to happen.
Yes, but then there's some other things that I to deal with a legal issue
Sure.
that came back, and there's a few things that happened that I had to deal with. But I'm hands down the best place I've ever been from a life standpoint. Almost where it felt like, even being here, just it felt like almost surreal from a life standpoint. I mean, even to have, I told you I had spent 2 days here just like taking life in before this next event we're having here, obviously for Warrior. But the reality is, man, I'm in a happy place. Oh, one more commitment I made at Warrior Week, just if I can, just really quick, that changed my
hold on.
Simple thing.
We're going to talk about that. Okay. So you made a commitment. The date is coming soon.
Yes.
Okay. And you also made another commitment inside of that to me.
Yes, that we're having, you're invited. We're having the buffet. Right.
What buffet?
The slider buffet.
No, man. What time?
Oh, midnight buffet.
Fucking midnight buffet, not buffet. Buffet.
Midnight buffet.
That is happening.
Yes. I mean, just and just talk about relationship. Yeah, it's 100%. It is. And the reality too.
But talk to them why the midnight buffet is so important.
For Sam.
No, but why is it overall? Like, you go to a wedding,
right.
Music is awesome.
Yeah, you told it. So everybody parties and has all these things, and obviously at the end there's just this wind down, right? And everybody's been drinking, and no one has the midnight buffet, right? Like Sam 100% wants to have with that, and so that's something that's
that feeds your soul, man.
Yes, it feeds everybody, literally, and so that's a commitment that I made to Sam as well.
Beautiful. You were going to talk about the second thing at Warrior Week, man.
So there's one, and just the small little shifts in me. So obviously I was a workaholic, and not prior to Warrior.
Yeah.
I created space, and there was this other small commitment that my one of the people helping there, Cullen had. And I potentially have been working until 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. And one of the commitments I made on that same mountain, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm being at home every day by 6 o'clock.
Nice.
Like, so simple, right? Just so simple. Yeah. And this is years after, I don't have the phones after work, but I'll creep it to 7. Then I'll creep it to 8 because I had this going on, that going on. So I made a commitment for the entire year that was supposed to be last year, 2018, right, that I would be home at 6. And I was kind of scared about that. I figured, like, the wheels, because I was that leader that I lead to the end. I lead till like 10 o'clock, and I'm crazy. And so what happened, I started doing that, and to this day, I left every day at 6 o'clock, and guess what?
Wow.
Guess what happened? Our company has grown, right? Yeah, it's crazy, right? From a revenue standpoint, from an employee standpoint, from a net income standpoint, from everything standpoint, because the Warrior Week forced me to make commitment. It's such a simple commitment that changed my. I mean, every day I'm home by 6 o'clock. I mean, it's the craziest thing from a connection standpoint.
Yes.
From anything, and so that's something that, like, small little things that ultimately
it's amazing. You invest a lot of fucking time in your business, but you match it at home.
Yeah, I mean,
how can you match it at home if you come at home at 9? you're like fucked already, you know?
And I would make these excuses, right? Just this one time, just this other time, and then ultimately
Just creep
would
up
be
on
this,
you.
and there was this, and what it also creates is a rhythm and a certainty, and these things like every night do the same thing together, or go eat, or go on the dock, or we
Spend
walk
time.
the boardwalk, and and looking back, like I wasted so much fucking time tied to a story that I had to be there for that certain time. When ultimately, if I would just lead better, if I would just get more clear and set that clear line in the sand, I mean, looking back at just this 1 year, those hours and the connection I've been able to create and the happiness I've created just from one fucking commitment on the mountain.
Beautiful.
And so, I mean, I'm grateful
So
to you.
36, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
You don't, you know,
I mean,
I'm
you
not
changed-
gonna
you
let that
changed
by.
my life.
Yeah, I
You changed my
appreciate
life
that.
every single way.
I have to appreciate that because you know that comes deep down inside from my heart, just witnessing the changes in you. And I never forget, you spoke at Warrior Con when you took the mic, and you were on a fucking roll, bro.
Right.
And I gotta find that footage. And I will just let me. What cardio? One was it or two? Well, anyway, you tell me later.
Okay.
I have to find that
Yeah.
footage. But you took the mic, you shared, and you were on a fucking roll, man. And I think I came to you and I told you how much certainty I saw in that.
Yes.
And how proud of the flow I was.
Yes.
Because that flow fucking like captured everyone. The conversation went like 5-6 minutes, but everyone, like, you collapsed the time in that conversation, man.
Oh, it was just magical in a way to obviously be able to share back some of the things I've learned through you all, Garrett. You know, everybody here changed my life. I mean, unrecognizable, but even to share some of those tools in business and how the Core 4 has changed power of my life in regards to certainty in business. And I think that was what my topic was, just, you know, having certainty in business. And all that was tools from Warrior.
Wow.
And I mean, like I said, just the amount of things that have happened since then, and problems and issues, things that used to stress me out so much that I would think was the end of the world. Now it's like, all right, okay, here we go.
Beautiful. Final word as we put this together. If there's a guy that was Blake Sloan in 2015 prior to you like coming to your first Warrior, if there's a guy like that right now that you know better than me, that is sitting on the other side and is somehow listening to this, or maybe this was forwarded to him by one of the people that is listening right now, is like, fuck, you know, I got to forward this to this guy because I think this guy is dealing with the kind of problem that Blake has. So if he's been forwarded to and he's been listening to it so far, like, what would be your direct conversation with him? Like, what would you say to him that's going to fucking pierce him in his heart right now?
So when we meditated before we came out, over and over, the message I got was that there's someone that need to hear your story today, because he's been listening to these, he hasn't taken action yet, and he knows deep down that it's time to finally reach out, because he has that same pain of not knowing, right? Not knowing why the pain is the way it is, of people around him not understanding the pain that he goes through. Because I could feel it when we meditated, and that's why I'm telling you those things there. And some of that I haven't even told you yet. And I'm telling you, if you've gone through that pain, you feel alone, and you need that brotherhood, you just don't know how to make sense of what you have going inside your head and what you got going inside your heart, just reach out to Sam. Come think about Warrior Week. At least investigate it differently and deeper, because it'll change your life. Even when you think there's no other hope, you think nothing else can happen, because it changed mine multiple times already.
Beautiful. And for those of you that have resonated with this message, you can find out more about this podcast, audio, video, transcript on warriorweeknow.com. It's obviously on iTunes as well, and so many other platforms. But one of the new things that is out right now, starting in about 2 weeks from now, it's a new adventure that starts online. It's called Be the Man Challenge. It's an adventure that's going to take you through 6 weeks of self-discovery and get you introduced to some of the conversations we had here with Blake and inside of the Warrior's Way and the belief system that is behind that. And you get to experience that from home, literally at the cost of fucking, going to a dinner. And you get to be part of that. And that opens so many other doors after you've gone through that experience. So if this resonates with you, check out BeTheMan.com, and you'll find all the details that starts your journey from there. If Warrior Week is a must in your heart, warriorweek.com. It's by invitation now. We only do a few a year. It's an ultimate place that a man needs to get in. Blake has been a part of it 3 times, once as a trainer and twice as a participant, and continues to be him. And I want to thank you for your time being here.
Thank you.
I truly and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I want I want to tell you that, bro, like you've been a hero of mine living the Warriors way. And like, going through what you had to do and inside of 46, just getting rid of what was holding you back and letting you be who you are. And inside of that, truly feel happy. Doesn't take away your problems. Like you have problems, I have problems, we all have fucking problems, okay? But be happy inside of be a happy guy solving your problem. That's the key thing. And create new fucking problems, because that's how we fucking grow.
Bigger problems with obviously a much bigger capacity. And last thing, I just wanted to say thank you for you, man, for all you've done for me. Like I've been super close to you since 16, man. You've had a massive impact on my life. Garrett, massive impact on my life. And I'm just so grateful for the movement of Warrior and everything it's done for me and the ripple effect it's had for everyone in my life. And so I'm super thankful for you, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate that. And lastly, don't forget my fucking midnight buffet, bro.
Buffet. I got
sliders.
It. Yes, sir. The sliders, man.
That does a body good, bro.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for being with us.
Yes,
Thanks for listening to this, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Because there is a story that there was 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 other men that were worth it. And the rest of us were to praise their journey. Praise your own journey. Praise him. Put no one in between.